Where's he
I
at?
just saw him pop up. I don't know where he went. But
Who goes? Oh, Brian goes first. Yeah, Brian goes first. Yeah, actually, next ways before he presents.
7:31 on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Warren Township High School Board meeting. First up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody would mind standing up and facing the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have an amendment or a change to the agenda?
I don't.
If not, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Anderson. Mrs. Beals? Yes. Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next up is recognitions.
We do have a very special recognition this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Bertola.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to introduce and recognize Elizabeth Webster. Most importantly, I'm honored and proud to have worked alongside Zip for my 22 years and her almost 30 years in the district. And I'm so grateful that our students have had the opportunity to have her as a teacher for as long as she's been with us. So Elizabeth Webster, come on up, Zip, AKA Zip. Woo-hoo. Okay, she's very humble, so you just have to allow us to brag about you here. So Zip was nominated by a student, James Kotsinis, and his mother for the Bears and CDW partnership. It's called Classroom Legends. And what the Bears do in their partnership with CDW is they get nominations from all over the Chicagoland area in the state of Illinois. And they review those nominations and choose based on the write-ups of the student and families, choose their winners. And Zip is in that distinguished group. And she is a classroom legend. I can vouch for that. And so we honored Zip at our staff meeting. And I just want to share with you, and you're going to actually see a video clip of it. Very rarely can I get the attention of our staff by having George McCaskey on the screen behind me. So that's a very good way to get everyone's attention. And the excitement in the room was awesome because everyone's so proud and happy for Zip. So actually, I'm going to play the clip and then I'll explain those pictures too.
Drum roll.
The meeting was virtual too, so we had to work through the technology that day with all staff in the auditorium, and the Bears, normally they come in and do it in person, but they were doing them virtual. So you'll see that technology here too. You can actually skip to 30, yep.
Well, good morning from Warren Township High School. We are in our auditorium
with CDW in a program called Classroom Legends powered by CDW. And the whole idea of the program is to honor great teachers. Nation from Warren Township High School. That's why we're here with you this morning. And this teacher has gone above and beyond. And in fact, the person who sent in the nomination said that there was a student in her class who was struggling. And because of this teacher's individualized instruction and going above and beyond, that student is now an A student in her honors English class. So that's just one example of the great work that this teacher is doing. And it gives me great pleasure to inform you that Elizabeth Webster
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that round of applause, standing ovation from our staff, I think just speaks volumes to the respect that Zip has from her colleagues, from students, from families. I can't tell you the amount of families and students who come up and sing Zip's praises, as well as colleagues. So again, I'm proud and honored to work alongside Zip. I want to just also share with you, so the Bears, part of the presentation in front of staff was the honor itself is deserving, but there's some pretty fun things that came with this award. So Zip got a Chicago Bears swag bag with beanie hat, mug, flags, things for her classroom. She got a signed football with her name on it and the Bears logo. She got a Bears jersey. She got 2 tickets to the Bears game, hence, and got the full treatment at the game. It was a crummy day, but she got her and Spider got the full treatment. And then she was also awarded a $1,000 check. So just again, want to honor and recognize Zip Webster and give her a chance to address the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everybody. It was an incredible day. Everyone we met that day from the minute we arrived was wonderful to us, so welcoming, really, really warm, very friendly. And I had never been live, in person to a professional football game before. So this was my first experience with pro football. And it was just wonderful. Even if you're not a Bears fan,
I'm still hearing from staff that I said go Bears that day. I had to.
Yep,
right?
yep. I heard it. Yes, you did.
Well, when he says go Warren, go Bears,
Yeah.
go Warren, go Bears. We'll do
Right.
that.
It was great. So, even if you're not, then you can still appreciate how kind and warm and welcoming they were to us. It was just a wonderful day. It was fantastic. They were so friendly to us. I felt as if I were going to the game with friends. And Mr. McCaskey right there, in that photo, he was sitting, right in front of us. He sat outside during that whole entire game. It was, I think, 40 degrees and raining. He sat there the whole game, the whole time, and just, chatted with us, chatted with the other teacher who had won that day. I guess they do 2 teachers every home game for the Classroom Legends. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I'm very, very grateful to James and his mom. I had James last year during a really, really challenging school year. And he and his mom both were just great and willing to put forth the work that a lot of our students were not willing to do. There were a lot of kids who kind of tuned out last year. James was not one of them. He and his mom, stuck with me, stuck with the class, whether we were, fully remote, hybrid, whatever, and just wonderful, incredible of them to do that nomination. So it was just incredible and wonderful all around. So thank you. Thank you for this too. Thank you.
You.
Yeah, it was great. So thank you.
And will be
Aw.
greatly missed next year as she's retiring this year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
So
anyways,
thank you.
congratulations. Zip.
thanks.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Zip. Thanks, Michelle. That's all for our recognition today, Mr. Schultz.
Next up is the reception of visitors. I did not see it that anybody was signed up, but if anybody would like to address the board, you're more than welcome to. You're allowed up to 3 minutes to address the board. Keeping in mind, it's not meant to be a dialogue, but if you've got an issue you'd like to bring up to the board, you're more than welcome to. Just come on up to the podium and introduce yourself and go for it. No need to be bashful. There's no rush.
Looks like a stampede.
Yeah, it's okay. There's another chance at the end of the meeting too for if you want to make a comment. So if something comes up during the meeting, you got another chance to address us. Brings us to the president's report. I have a couple of things I want to talk about first, and one of them came from our future superintendent, Dr. Danny, and this is for the board members. With his coming on board, ISB has provided us with a complimentary in-district workshop for the school board on a whole variety of topics. So I'm going to be sending this list out to everybody to see if there's any topics that would be of interest to you or to us. And maybe pick one or two that you think would be good for us for educational purposes, for bonding purposes, to get to know Danny a bit more. There's a lot of benefit of it. So let's take a look at it and see what we'd like to do. So that email will go out tomorrow. The other thing I'd like to bring up, which is the same thing I've been bringing up in the last couple of meetings, is we have a referendum coming up in June. We cannot get out there enough and start volunteering, whether it's through a community group, such as, the Yes Warren Township High School group, through our own opportunities that we'll be talking about later on. There'll be more opportunities that we can do on our own as a board or as individuals. We cannot get the word out enough. I know I've said this the last couple of meetings, and I'll say it again. Some individuals are very vocal, some individuals are very quiet. We need to be more vocal. So I'm not going to dwell on this point, but we need to do more. The last thing I want to bring up is there's a Lakes Division meeting coming up on March 9th, Wednesday, March 9th, down at Libertyville. The program is about budgets and funding impacts in Illinois. If anybody would like to go to this, let Jean know. I know there's been quite a bit of interest in the board or by board members on budgets. So if this is a topic that you think you'd like to go to, just let Jean know and she'll help you get signed up. That's all I had for tonight.
Good.
All good. Next up is committee reports.
We did have a committee meeting on January 11th. I'll read those policies in a little bit when they are for a first reading for the board, but we did have 88 or 89 or so ton of policies that we did review at our last meeting. And I'll go over those in a little bit just when we get to that list. So that's all for our committees.
On to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, we do have for the board's review, we do have our attendance, enrollment and discipline reports from December for the board. Also want to make sure that this evening, we had a few postponed presentations last time for November and December. We're fortunate tonight to have our student council rep, Karen is here, and our National Honor Society president, Shar, is here. So we've got a couple slides up there, I think, girls, that you're going to be able to come up to the podium. I think the student council slides might be first. So as soon as we find those, and Lauren is not here, is that right, Karen? So let's see. So you are up, and why don't we flip it one more slide, Brandon? So Karen remembers what was on those slides from 2 months ago.
Okay, so bear with me since these are from November, but in November, we had a Thanksgiving food drive, which we tried to collect non-perishable items, and that lasted throughout the week of November 15th through 19th. And then all the donations that we had were given to the Warren Township Food Pantry, which I think is super convenient since it's really close by to us. And then we also had another donation drive. It's called the Hoodies from the Heart, and that was the hoodies that we collected from kids were given to caring for kids, and that lasted until November 12th. And we just collected used hoodies that kids didn't really want because we felt like it would be a waste for kids to just throw away their hoodies when people, especially during this time, could need the hoodies. And then we also had Trunk or Treat, which was on October 24th, and we used cars, the trunks of the cars, to have a booth for kids to have candy and try to give the vibes of Halloween, since it might have been like a little hectic with COVID going on. So we tried making something fun for the kids that can. And then Trick or Treat, which is also kind of similar to Trunk or Treat, where we had activities outside the Almond campus for kids to just enjoy the activities that we had out there. And then we also gave them candy since it's Halloween. And then we also had the Veterans Toiletry Drive, which lasted like around a week and a half through November 1st through 12th. And that's when we brought in toiletry items like razors, toilet paper, soap, Q-tips. And all the donations were given to the Christian Outreach of Lutherans. So cool food pantries to help food stamp eligible veterans. And then this was one of the main things that we kind of organized. It was the letters to Santa, which felt like a long time ago, actually.
It was.
But we distributed the letters November 18th to 23rd, and each student or teachers could receive them during their lunch period or like their off period. And we collected the gifts December 1st to 3rd. And then we started ordering from Amazon, like the gifts that still needed to be done. And those we had done by November 6th. And then we had the big pickup truck come December 10th to gather all the gifts. And then I do have an update with that. So we decided to do all the gifts from a school in Chicago called Riley High School. And the outcome was pretty good, I would say. We purchased gifts for about 600 students, pre-K through 8th. And over 500 students and staff participated in Warren, which I think is really good, especially like those people that are able to, spend their own money for kids that don't really have the financial money to receive gifts. And actually, like a few teachers involved their whole class to try to get like a kid a class gift, which I really thought was really supportive of like the teacher. So yeah. And then for February, right now, we're just planning on having something to kind of replace Turnabout, since that we decided not to have it because of COVID. So we're planning on doing something Valentine's Day related, maybe. Maybe we'll say that at the next board meeting. So we'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
Char, you're up.
Hi, everybody. This is my first appearance. My name is Charlize, and I'm the president of NHS. So this year's just been kind of different. Usually the induction ceremony goes on in April, but then because of COVID, it got pushed all the way to September. So it was a great turnout, and it was different from most years because the previous president gets to induct the incoming class, but this year I got to do it, which was really awesome. So we inducted 227 members. It was located in the Almond Gym. It was like perfect size, and it was a really great turnout. And then just a recap of first semester, we did a couple of things through the Gurney Park District, which was the like Halloween dress up in the left corner. So a lot of people did that, which was amazing to see. And then we also participated in the trick or treat activities in front of Almond campus. So it was really fun. As you can see, we have spoons and had like eyeballs on them. And then we had kids go around cones. So they really enjoyed that. And then NHS also owns a road in kind of the Wadsworth area, Green Bay Road. So that's just a picture of them cleaning up some trash. So that pretty much is all the activities that we did for first semester.
Char, who's for the upcoming induction? Are you overseeing that as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
So our next induction is April 7th, and then everyone who met their requirements, I think it's like a 3.5 GPA or higher, they got all of the materials to start their application process, and all of that is due by the 22nd of this month, I believe. And then the staff reviews it. I think people hear back by March, and then the induction in April, which then again I lead. So I love talking. I'm so excited to do it again. And then what else did I have? Can you go to the next slide?
Can I interrupt really quick? What grades is this for? Is it just juniors and seniors?
Yeah, so it's just juniors that get inducted.
Okay.
They start in January, but then, so say all of the board members of the senior class of NHS, they're the ones who oversee the juniors inductions, which
Okay.
was different during the pandemic since a lot of people couldn't make it. But yeah, that's what's going on this year.
So for this coming year, when you do have the induction in April, I know that previously we had some of us briefly commented that in the past, some of the board members have attended, and that recently, obviously with everything going on, hasn't happened.
Mhm.
But in April, if any of us are interested, would we be able to join and participate
Yes.
in your induction?
100%. As of I know now, there's no like limit or capacity, stuff like that. And I think Dr. Algram, he attended the last NHS induction. So did Dr. Parrott. So I think everyone's more than welcome. And it's honestly just so cool and an honor to watch that. Everyone's so proud, see all the parents. So yeah, for sure. Come on out.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
of course. And then everyone needs to attend 2 meetings per semester, have 10 hours of community service, and then they get to get the cool tassel at graduation. So yeah, that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Char. Is Mr. Pear, are you hiding back there?
Yes.
Have we decided where that induction is going to be in April tentatively? Yeah, so yeah, it's, we just, for board members, we used to do this ceremony in the auditorium over at O'Plain, but you know, for spacing and things like that, they moved it to the gym and it worked out very well. That was very nice. So, all right, thanks, Rob. Thank you, ladies. Thanks for coming in too. That's our student leadership report for the evening. And so our next presentation is our department report from our special ed team. Who's coming to the mic first? Dr. Keeley or no? Are you, okay, you got it? Okay, now look at he was hiding back there. He's like, yeah.
Tonight we'll have a report from our special education department. This year, Kara Garland, who is our director, and Yesenia Gamanch, which I don't know that the board has actually met yet. have they? So Yesenia is a new hire in COVID times. So I know sometimes you don't get met. We're very happy with Yesenia so far. She has also translated during our referendum presentations. Her and Matt Jones are giving the Spanish versions, which we're very thankful for. In addition, we have our lead teacher, Mary Hill, who's been with us. So you should know her, and she's an excellent resource for our kids, particularly at the Transition Center. Kara?
So hi, it's so good to see everybody. Last time we did this virtually, so it's good to see everyone. So
True.
as Pat mentioned, we're gonna go ahead and just give you a brief update from our department. Do you have the clicker or do you want me to click? Perfect. So our special education staffing plan. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
We're worried about the people online.
Oh, okay. So for our special education staffing plan, it has remained fairly consistent over the years. Couple of small changes that I'll go ahead and point out. We did have a shift in our paraprofessionals just based on some IEP needs. So we had an additional need at the O'Plain campus. So we shifted one position from Almond over to O'Plain. You will see too that our social work department has decreased by 1. However, our school psychologists did increase by 1. Okay, that additional school psychologist helps us support the O'Plain staff as well as the transition department. Okay, the other change that is noted is our occupational therapist. So we had an increased need for occupational therapy services. So what we did is we changed our partnership just slightly. We continue to maintain an occupational therapist, but then we also employed a CODA, which is a certified occupational therapy assistant. So it allowed us to increase our service, but still be very cost conscious.
This overview breaks down the supports that students receive within our department. Our special education enrollment is a total of 510 students, which is 13.2% of the total student body population. At Plain, 9% of students receive special education services. It can go to the next slide, please, Brandon. And then 10.5% receive them at Almond. We have 39 students currently enrolled within CEDAW, including 12 in their transition programs. 2 students are placed residentially, which are district funded, and there is 1 student that is residentially placed, in which the district only pays tuition for. 5 students participate in our Bridges program. 26 are in our transition program, and there are currently 115 students placed out of house, which is 22% of our special ed population that's off campus.
So our special education department is funded by a couple of different large components. Our main funding source for our department is our IDEA grant. This year we have about 700,000 roughly. Typically what we have used that grant for in the past, a big bulk of that goes to our CEDAW tuition, as well as our paraprofessional salaries and benefits, as well as professional development. So this year we had a fairly large carryover from last year regarding our professional development. A lot of our national conferences and our opportunities were just canceled due to COVID. So we're fortunate this year that we have a little extra money to spend in the area of professional development. So we're happy about that. Although I will tell you, we are still having some difficulty of securing some conferences because we're starting to see a decline in the availability again. So a lot of our partnerships with our different companies are doing things virtually at a much more cost-effective manner. So it gives us an opportunity to send more staff, but it's still difficult to secure some of those opportunities. Our next largest piece is the STEP grant. Mary will go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, so this is the Secondary Transitional Experience Program, or the STEP grant. So the STEP grant is a program that prepares students with disabilities to just become productive, self-sufficient adults with a variety of STEP experiences. So this is a partnership with the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Division of Rehabilitation Services, which is DRS. DRS works in partnership with people with disabilities and their families to assist them in making informed choices so that they're able to achieve full community participation through employment, education, and independent living opportunities. So some of the STEP experiences include connecting with a DRS vocational rehabilitation counselor. We assist students in developing desirable work habits and setting realistic career goals. We also provide opportunities for students to explore different types of careers. And then a big part of our program is offering students meaningful work experiences through on-the-job placements. And then also encouraging students to develop social and personal skills that are needed to maintain employment. This grant currently involves 2 administrators, Yesenia and Kara, the transition lead teacher, which is myself, and then also our transition specialist, which is Dr. Barda. The funds that we receive from this grant have been used to purchase equipment, curriculum, classroom materials, technology, things like that, just to keep the program running.
So we have 2 additional funding sources for our department. Medicaid reimbursement. This allows for some of our students who are Medicaid eligible. We have several staff members here who are able to submit claims for their services. Last year, we had about $120,000 that came back into our district because of our Medicaid and our fee for service. The last opportunity for funding sources within our department is the ALOP. You may have remembered maybe October-ish, maybe September-ish, there was a presentation about the ALOP grant. We are part of that, and that really just helps to keep our services integrated into the community. Okay.
So our department offers a continuum of services. Those services include general education, honors courses, advanced placement courses with accommodations, co-taught classes, our new learning strategies course, instructional cross-categorical classes, self-contained special ed programs, extended school year as identified by the IEP team, therapeutic day schools, and residential settings. We have 4 primary case managers that support the majority of students with IEPs, and we have program case managers that support students within our self-contained classrooms. The case management model allows for there to be continuity of services that we provide our students. It helps build strong relationships with families, and it allows us to provide targeted professional development. We also have an active partnership with our student services teams where we discuss concerns regarding academics, a student's social emotional well-being, and or behavioral concerns.
So a couple of things within our department that we're really excited about this year. You just heard Yesenia mention our learning strategies course. In years past, we've offered what we've called the Supervised Study, which really kind of had a connotation that it was, hey, this is just going to be a study hall and I'm going to get a chance to do my homework. Well, we recognize that that's an important component for our students. We also recognize that we needed to have some more direct instruction in the area of executive functioning and planning and organization. So we had several staff members over the summer work to go ahead and revamp that curriculum. So this is the first year that we are rolling it out. We've had great feedback from our staff as well as our students. So I think our parents, I think, probably appreciated a little bit more than the students in terms of having some of that direct instruction. Our goal is that if we need to offer this course for multiple years, we absolutely will. But our goal is to get our freshman and sophomore in to be able to go ahead and decrease that level of support moving forward to the Allen campus. So we recognize needs change. So, we continue to be fluid, but we're really excited about it. So the next big goal for us is an increased focus on our grading practices. COVID was hard on us last year. Some of our students weren't as successful as we had hoped they'd be. So it gave us an opportunity to really sit down with our department and take a look at our engagement strategies, our motivation strategies, and really making sure that we're providing students with an opportunity to be successful with all of our supports and accommodations. So this has been a really big push for us this past semester, and we'll continue to engage in those conversations just to go ahead and examine our existing practices and how we can help to support those students. Last piece that we are really excited about is our increased partnership with our career and technical staff here. So some of this started with some new legislation that passed that required us to go ahead and explore our post-secondary and career and technical educational opportunities for our students with service. But these were great partnerships that we have had in years past, but it really kind of gave us the opportunity to take a look at what are we offering, how are we offering, and how are we communicating that to our staff and to our parents. So actually, as of this morning, our website has been updated with all of our opportunities for our students. And we've had a partnership. We've had increased conversations, I should say, with both our post-secondary counselors as well as our transition specialists to really make sure that we're honing in on that. Still some work to be done in that area for sure, but we're really proud of the work that we have done already. So, transition.
Okay, so we've successfully started the 21-22 school year, which seems like obviously that's going to happen. But after last year, we're like, yes, we did it.
Well, but taking a step back, if you think about it, this is the first year that we're in our new site.
Yeah.
We were technically there last year, but with minimal capacity. So
Right.
This is a really big exciting piece
Yes.
for us.
Yes.
Play that up.
So we're back full time in person. We're in the community, which is amazing because that's just such a huge part of the transition program. So even with COVID going on, we're in the community with really no restrictions. We're obviously still following all of the safety protocols and procedures. And our students are doing really well with it. So I'm so proud of them. We have our enrollment continues to be very consistent. We're right around 30 students, with new students coming in each year and others exiting each year. We are expanding our work-based learning locations. So not only are we back in the community, but we're getting a lot of new experiences. We've recently started having some students work out at Anastasia's restaurant, and then we have others at Country Inn and Suites. So we've been wanting a restaurant and a hotel and we've gotten it, and it's going extremely well. We're always looking for new job sites. We always want to offer new experiences to our students so they can get as many different experiences before they exit as possible.
And then just some additional pieces. I don't know if you are aware, but there have been two new legislative components around the transition age as well as the program. So first things first is that typically in years past, a student would age out, quote unquote, of the program the day before their 22nd birthday. New legislation is now allowing those students to remain for the entire school year in which they turn 22. So that increases the opportunity for our students. The second piece of legislation that came about this year has to do with COVID. So we did have some students that aged out last year. So there was some new legislation that are allowing those students who, there's a variety of different criteria, but the short version of it is that if they aged out during COVID instruction, they have the opportunity to return back for this school year and only this school year. So we did have some students that we were able to go ahead and offer that to, and several students that and families that took us up on that opportunity. So we are very excited to have them back within our program for the rest of the school year. So any questions that you have for us? Special education in a nutshell.
It's a big nutshell.
It is. It's a big and expensive nutshell. We know. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to go ahead and reach out. We thank you for your continued support. So
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you guys do.
Our next report is our solar report that we've also postponed a few times here. Mike, do you want to introduce Brian?
Yeah.
Is Brian on?
Brian on.
I'm here.
All right.
Okay, we don't see you, Brian, but we hear you. This is Brian Oniak from PSI. They are the company that actually put together the whole entire solar project on the solar farm out there on our solar field, actually. So without further ado, I know Brian's been waiting here a little bit, and I know we've been kind of waiting a little while, but he's going to give us the first year update and solar update for energy savings.
Thanks, Mike. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. My camera is on, so hopefully you can see me, but thanks for having me. Again, Brian Ondiak with Performance Services, and excited to share the year one performance and savings results for your solar project. Next slide. So this is just a very brief overview on the size of the project, 2.41 megawatt system, just over 7,000 panels and 32 inverters. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this covers the period from November 2020 to October 2021. Yeah, I think as Mike alluded to, we originally scheduled to come in and share these results with you in November. I know that got rescheduled and December didn't work out, but here we are. So that's the period that this covers. The solar system produced over that time period 2.9 million kilowatt hours, which is really a significant amount of power and energy. It ended up being 91% of predicted. So at the onset of this project, we provide predictions, which of course are based on the system size and characteristics, as well as an assessment on the weather or weather prediction. So we're pleased with the 91% because over this reporting period, the actual weather was about, in terms of the clear days, was about 79% of typical. So we were satisfied with the 91% performance, and we saw similar with other systems we've installed in schools. In terms of the electric cost reduction, it's calculated to be $215,000 in energy savings. And we have, there's some more information I can share on that as well as we get into it. The SREC income, for those of you that recall, we were able to secure in a contract such that Warren could sell RECs generated by the system. So a REC is a renewable energy credit. It's equivalent to 1,000 kilowatt hours of solar energy produced. And so there was a mechanism by which the school could secure additional revenue by selling those RECs. Which is essentially the legal claim over that green power, which our utilities like to procure so that they can claim credit for it, since they have a mandate for a certain percentage of their generation to be renewable. So really a significant amount of money secured over this time period for the SRECs, the Solar Renewable Energy Credits, at $666,000. And then in addition, there was a one-time rebate when the system was energized that we secured from ComEd for just over $600,000. So the total of all three of those savings buckets or revenue buckets were just under $1.5 million for that time period. And this is just an overview on how the solar produced month to month relative to predicted. So you'll see that in January and February, we fell most behind. And a number of months, March, November, August, September, we're pretty much on point. July took a dip, but on the whole for the year, it was 91% of the overall prediction. Next slide, please. This is just to show, I don't know if I like to forget my winters, but I do happen to remember February 2021. I think we had, I don't know, what, 17 or 18 consecutive days of snow. That was pretty remarkable. So we did, unfortunately, the solar doesn't quite produce when it's covered with snow. So we did take a hit more than expected in the winter, January and February months of this year. So this slide is really just highlighting that. And then in terms of utility purchased kilowatt hours, so this was really quite astonishing. The base year, I believe that was 2015 and 2016, where we assessed the utility consumption of the Ullman campus at that time. This project, had been starting to be developed even around then, 2016, 2017. So it was a long time in trying to evaluate this project and move forward to construction. But that base year, there's a blue bar there as to what the Ullman campus utility bills showed for the purchased kilowatt hours, and that orange is after the solar. So really a huge reduction. Now, of course, we have to take into account that the building was likely less utilized over this past year due to the pandemic, but still a pretty significant change there. And then this is essentially the monthly costs between the base year and the first year reporting period that we're in. So you can see the differences there. Of course, August was really interesting that there wasn't a substantial, and it could have just been the building really ramping up and having a lot of heavy use. Of course, we've experienced with many of our other school customers, a lot of additional fresh air being brought in the building for ventilation, and of course that costs energy. But overall, really substantial electric expenditure reduction month to month. This is just to share, this is an overview of your utility costs, your electric costs in that base year. So I'm sorry, I had the dates wrong there, but it was 2017, September 2017 to August 2018. And so over the course of that year, you'll notice the building consumed 6.5 million kilowatt hours. And there was a total electric cost of just under $351,000. So if you can go to the next slide, this is your current year, the year one utility data. So that 6.6+ million kilowatt hours went down to 343, which is obviously a tremendous reduction. And that's not even fully explained by the solar, as we know, because the solar produced approximately just under 3 million kilowatt hours. So the building was, obviously experienced some significant changes in how it was utilized. And then the total cost for the electric bills over this period was $136,000. So quite a big reduction from the 350. And then just to summarize, these are really the savings components that I explained on one of those first slides. You can see how that breaks out. The SREC income, the $666,000 there, reminder for the board, the total contract value, the total amount that pie could grow to would be about 1.9 million. That 601,000, the ComEd rebate, that's a one-time deal, one-time rebate. And then the energy savings, of course, will continue so long as the system's in service. This is just an overview. We have a customer portal software, if you will, where the customer can log tickets if there's challenges with the system. I know we just had one last week actually, and phone call works too, Mike. That's always fine too. But it's an offering we provide for our customers in order to be able to submit tickets if we need to evaluate something on the system. So any questions for me on the performance of the solar system?
Can I just ask a weather-related question? So snowfall, I mean, we're in Illinois. It's going to snow every year, 3 months, probably during the time where we need the energy the most because we're heating buildings. Is there really no technology or solution to snowfall accumulating on a solar panel? I mean, it's impractical to have someone sweep off 7,000 solar panels. I get that part, but
right.
It just seems to me with all the technology that's there, it's crazy that it just in essence slows down when snow accumulates.
Yeah, I think there are some services that will do that. I'm not personally aware of some sort of slick technology solution to remove snow from the panels. But thankfully, you know, your system, it's ground mount system, the panels are on a more substantial tilt than they would be if they were on the roof. And so the snow is, you know, more likely to slip off those panels at that angle. Also, you know, your comment on needing the energy most in those months. Thankfully, in Illinois, we have what's called net metering legislation. So the system is, of course, generating the most energy over the summer, and the building is oftentimes least utilized during that period. So when the system's overproducing, that excess is banked and then can be subsequently used in the winter months. But no, I understand your question and point on the snow on the panels and whether there's no technology. Unfortunately, I'm not aware.
I know very little in this space. It's just when you can heat a driveway or a sidewalk, it seems to me you should be able to heat a solar panel. So I actually have no knowledge or any idea of that, even if that exists. But you answered my question. Thank you.
I thought when this was introduced to us that snow was not going to be that big of an issue because of the dark color of the panels, that the snow would melt very quickly. I was under the assumption that snow would not be a factor for the solar.
Well, snow can always be a factor, but it's true that the light does trickle through the snow and that panel does heat up. So there's kind of a boundary layer of heat that does facilitate it melting quicker than it would otherwise. But unfortunately, you know, if we get 10 inches of snow and the panels are fully covered, they're not going to be producing as much.
So the SREX, which is 666,000, there's more to come on that as well. Am I correct?
There is more. That is correct. Yep. The total contract value is about 1.9 million. So, and I've been working with Mike and his team on that program, and things are going well, and invoices will be generated quarterly, such that you can secure that revenue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Our next report for the board, I think we're going to jump to your treasurer's report, Mike. I think that's next up in the queue, hopefully, Brandon. Great.
Next slide. There you go. So I'm going to go through a quick fund balance breakdown of where we are currently for year ending December 31st. We're at about $40.6 million. You subtract out debt service about 3.5, you end up with 37.1. Carry that down, subtract out for capital projects of approximately about $300,000. We're at $36.8 million, subtract out working cash and restricted portions of the remaining bond funds. About $10 million brings us down to 26.8 million is available, and this accounts for approximately 37.7% of our total revenue. And keep in mind, ISB's recommendation is at least at 25%, and it's going to be slowly, continuously going down as we'll watch it through May and June. Well, we will definitely dip underneath that 25%, but just kind of bringing the board up to speed on where we're at each and every month. For comparison, again, it's the same $57 million. Subtract out debt services about 12 years ago, about 4 million, leaving 53. Capital projects funded about 27.4, remaining balance of 25.6, and 25.6 of that time of available fund balance was about 50.2% at that period in time. All right, next slide. So starting with the treasurer's report, I just mentioned year-to-date revenues have been 35.3 million. Expenditures are at 31.3. So far, we're ahead of we're ahead about $4 million so far year-to-date in comparison to last year at exactly the same time. Revenues again this year were 35.3. Last year they're 33.7. Expenditures again this year at 31.3. Last year at 27.9. So just to kind of give you an idea, being fully in person, we definitely have much more in expenditures this year. Next slide. So this is revenue year to date across all funds. And this is projected revenues. We're going to start with just locally here. We should be right around 50 almost 1%. And right now we're at 55.5. Again, state sources at 48.59, and we should be right around 40. So revenue as far as local and from the state are a little bit ahead of where we were in prior years. Next slide, going through the expenses. If you look year to date, and this is across again all funds, we should be right around 45.4%. Currently, we're at 48 almost 1. Year to date salaries, we should almost be at 42%. We're at 43.3. Other objects, including special education, we're trending right now at 58.7, and we should be right around 53.8. So we're running a little bit, just a little warm. I'm not going to say hot, but a little warm so far. So next slide kind of shows how we're trending. As you can see, we're right there in December. That gap, you're going to watch a negative line kind of running right into the red line. The red line is last year's where we were for each and every month, and our slope of the blue line will continue at a greater rate than last year because we have more expenses being fully in person and everything else operating this year. I know we made mention of the kind of the solar report a little bit before, but now that the buildings are totally occupied and in use, and we have the full operational cost of everything going on as well. So I'm still anticipating hopefully no delays from Lake County come spring taxes. So I'm hoping that everything kind of comes in right when it should in May and June. I'm hoping for no delays. I don't want to be put in that position again. So if everything goes well and go as planned, we should hit our low point second or third week there in May. So that's where we're at. Next slide.
Mike, can I ask you a question? You mentioned the solar savings just now. What was the anticipated solar savings in the first couple of years on an annual basis?
As far as just utility wise, or?
Yeah, when we first put together the payback projections and how much in energy savings we're expected to save each year for the first couple of years.
According to what we had gotten from PSI, it was approximately right around $300,000 a year.
So why is there like close to $100,000 delta?
That's a great question. And that's one of the questions I had for Brian, and I'm going to get an answer from him. That's
a huge difference.
Absolutely. And I know part of it had to do with the capacity at 91% and also the additional cloudy days and whatnot. But
I'm not buying that because that's our weather. So that should have been built into it.
Well, I think he said that what he said, and I'm not justifying what he said, but what he said, it was a percentage off of our normal cloudy days. So it was actually below average. So I'm not saying it makes up $100,000,
Yeah,
but they did figure it in, but he said this past year
it was more cloudy than
was
projected.
lower
Yeah,
than a normal, what would be average. So you're gonna have some that'll be better
yeah,
and some that'll be worse. So
yeah. That 10%
whether that makes
delta
up
is
$100,000.
So, yeah,
Yeah, you're right. That's
yeah,
exactly
if you
right.
could look into that, that would be great.
The other thing is we'll make sure we pull that chart because it was an escalating number. It wasn't 300. It was a number that might have started a little shy.
Yeah, it
of
might have started low and
300,
ramped up to that,
went
but yeah, I
over
was just
300.
curious.
So, but we'll try to find that exact chart because
Thank you.
No, absolutely, because I was thinking the same thing you were thinking.
Yeah.
So this is for the fund balance month ending December. As you can see, we started off fund balances right there at 45.9 million, had 1.5 in revenue, had $6.7 million in expenditures, and an ending fund balance of 40.6 million. And last slide there, this is from the beginning of the year to where we are now. So this is from July 1st, 35.5, almost $35.6 million in fund balance. Revenues year to date, this is across all funds, 38.9 million, expenditures at 33.8. And our fund balance right now, as of December 31st, of a little bit more than $40.6 million in all across all funds. Any questions? Slide. That's me.
So we have a few other things just I want to make sure that I bring to the board's attention since as part of the superintendent's report, we did have two FOIAs since our last meeting. One of them was from Malou Landscaping regarding some past bid documents. One was from ABC 7 regarding remote learning equipment documentation. So those came in. Also want to make sure the board was aware we're still working on an answer to a question, a great question that came up at our last board meeting about the opportunity for board members to discuss amongst themselves after public comment, after citizens comment. So we're still working on that to embed that. Just make sure we do it the right way and find the best way to embed that within our system. Didn't want you to think that we hadn't forgotten it. We just haven't moved on it yet. One other thing that we're ready to send out is we had, if you remember, at our last meeting, last 2 meetings ago, maybe we talked a little bit about the communications survey that went out back in the fall. And so we do have a letter that we put together just to put out to the community to let them know. Thanks for everybody who participated. Here's some things we learned. Here's some things we've been doing differently or are going to start doing differently. So just as kind of a closure on that piece to let people know that indeed the results came in and we did, we've learned some things and tried to do some things differently, as well as obviously that's an ongoing, in terms of communications, that's always an ongoing kind of learning process. But we didn't want, we'll put in an article in the Warren Connection at our January Warren Connection, as well as send a letter out to our community regarding that. And I think that's all we had for our superintendent's report. Unless I'm forgetting anything. We're good. So that's all for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Algam. Next up is the consent agenda. No changes to it, so I'm just going to go ahead and make the motion. I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented, which includes Exhibit A, personnel recommendations, numbers 75 through 77 as posted, and Exhibit B, athletic and activities recommendations, numbers 25B through 28B as posted. The payment of bills for January 18th, 2022, in the amount of $5,682,657.59, and the regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes of the December 21-22 meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Anderson. Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Beals, Mrs. Blair,
I abstain.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
I have 4 yes and 2 abstentions. Motion carries.
Next up is new business.
Thanks for Nick's patience up there. Dr. Ringo, you want to introduce Nick in our FY21 audit?
Well, this is Nick Cavalieri. He is, he's actually our principal, I want to say, from Baker Tilly. Is that correct? Or you're our main principal there? I don't know exactly what to call you, but yeah, he oversaw the entire audit process. This is our first year with Baker Tilly. As you guys will recall, last year we did our audit with Miller Cooper, and we went out for the RFP process for auditors, and Baker Tilly was the one that won the RFP. So this is our first year working with them, and they're going to go through and give an audit presentation on how we did on the FY21 year, which is 20 through 21 school year.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to present to the board this evening. I put together a brief slide deck regarding the audit process, the audit results, and a high-level presentation of the district's financial position as of June 30, 2021. We were able to complete our audit, and we've issued our reports on the district's financial statements that were dated on December 7th of 2021. So it's my understanding that the board has received copies of the audited financial statements, in addition to a communication report that we present that's, some boilerplate language regarding, what the audit is designed to do and some of the results of that. You don't necessarily have to have those documents open while I go through the presentation, but if there's any questions, once you had an opportunity to review those, at the end of the presentation, you can definitely let me know. I'd be happy to take any questions. One of the things that's a little different on this audit cycle, and it's a change, I think is a change for the good to some extent. With all of this new federal funding that's come from the pandemic, the federal government has had a lot of challenges in keeping up with issuing guidelines as to how when the funds start to be used to some extent, and then also as to how the auditors are required to complete their audit procedures when auditing certain federal awards. It's commonly referred to as a single audit. So your district expends over $750,000 of federal funds. Because of that, you're required to have a single audit performed by your external auditing firm. The external auditing firm has to look towards the federal guidelines to perform these procedures. Those came late this year, and they've been coming later as things have been disrupted as a result of the pandemic. So we are actually performing the single audit. We have not yet issued our reports on that. There's been extensions that are filed. The actual Illinois State Board of Education changed their filing requirements as a result of it, because they are now aware of the situation. So, none of this is late, I think is probably where I'm trying to go with it, is even though it's not finished yet, it's not late, and there's no problems because of that. So if you can go to the next slide. So the scope of the fiscal year audit is fairly robust. We provide assurances over the district's financial statements. Every school district in the state of Illinois is required to have an annual financial report form audited, which is a state regulatory report. There is an agency called the Grant Accountability and Transparency Unit with the state of Illinois. They have a document called a CIFR, or Consolidated Year-End Financial Report, that they require the external auditor to provide assurances over. Your federal expenditures are required to be reported on a document called a Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. We provide assurances over the amounts presented in that document. We conduct a single audit, which is essentially a compliance audit over your controls and the compliance with the use of federal awards. And then because you're a governmental entity, we also are required to render a report over internal control over financial reporting and compliance matters that may have come to light during the course of our audit. So there's a lot of things that we actually look at. If you can please advance the slide. So the results of our audit procedures yielded what you call an unmodified audit opinion on the financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that you can receive from the external auditor that your financial statements present fairly in all material respects and contain the appropriate disclosures in accordance with the modified cash basis of accounting, which is the basis of reporting that you use in your financial statements. We've also rendered an unmodified audit opinion on the Illinois State Board of Ed's annual financial report. The consolidated year-end report, the CIFR and the CFA, the two documents that I referenced just a slide before, are ongoing, but we fully anticipate, based on our preliminary results, to render unmodified opinions on those documents. So, ultimately, that's what you want to hear about the type of assurance that the external auditor was rendered. If you hear something like a modified opinion or an adverse opinion or a disclaimer of opinion, those are things that basically speak to the fact that the auditor didn't necessarily agree with something or had some scope limitations of what we did not have this year. If you could advance to the next slide, please. So, these financial statements can be a little daunting. There's a lot of different information within them. When I come to speak to boards, I generally like to point out 2 pages to just kind of go over the financial results for the fiscal year. So if you had the books in front of you, this would be page 16 and 17. And I'm just going to give you a real brief overview, and I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper dive in my next slide. But page 16, I like to think of as kind of your ongoing operational funds. For external reporting purposes, the general fund consists of your educational accounts, the working cash accounts, and the tort immunity account. So when you're budgeting and when you're talking about your internal records and the state forms and things like that, those are separate funds. But under governmental reporting purposes, those are consolidated together to create what they call a general fund. And then you see your operations and maintenance fund, your transportation fund, municipal retirement fund. Those 4 funds I like to think of as the day-to-day kind of ongoing resources available for the school district. Off to the right on page 17 would be your debt service fund and your capital projects fund. Now, your debt service fund is really, for the most part, servicing your large outstanding, bonds and commitments of that nature. The capital projects fund is servicing, capital projects that are funded with an identified set of resources. In many instances, that could be transfers from other funds or proceeds from bond issuances, or proceeds from bond issuances that are subsequently transferred there, like what your district has done as well. But what you can see is that in the general fund, if you go about 3/4 of the way off the bottom line, you'll see a line that says excess deficiency of revenues over expenditures. So that line right there is really from a standpoint, an operational change. So where your receipts that you collected more or less than your expenses, your checks that were cut during the year. And you can see that on, those 4 particular columns or those 4 funds, that your receipts were higher than your expenses. And there's some reasoning behind that I'll get into in a little bit. One of the more noteworthy ones is the transportation fund, because of, routes and things like that in the pandemic. Your expenses in your transportation fund were not consistent with your revenues, and the general fund has some things that happened which were one-time things that occurred during the year that are kind of giving you that surplus during the year. And then below those lines are the transfer categories. So if you were to issue debt or if you transfer money between funds, those activities are accounted for in this section. And we can see that the district moves some dollars around between funds to ultimately place them into the capital projects fund, which was used for the most part for the costs that were incurred during fiscal year 21. Okay. If you can advance to the next slide, please. So within your financial statements, if you were to have the book open, there are several schedules that are in there that help break apart the general fund so that you can still see your educational accounts, your tort immunity accounts, and your working cash accounts. There's a budget to actual schedules as well if you want to really take a deep dive into the activity. But one thing that, this is kind of old news. I mean, the financial statements are dated, but for me coming into the district, being new, I just spent a lot of time just trying to get an understanding of, where you were at financially and some of the things. And you can see that your educational accounts really don't have a sizable fund balance position. At the end of fiscal year 21, there was a $2.9 million ending fund balance. If you looked at the general fund, right off the face of the basic financial statements, you see $22.9 million, but the brunt of that fund balance really consisted of unspent bond proceeds, about $19.7 million or so of working cash dollars. So that kind of bolsters your general fund's position. But when you take a little bit of a deeper dive, you can see that your educational accounts are much lower in fund balances. And then also, at the end of fiscal year 21, there was a loan outstanding from the working cash fund to the ed fund for $6 million. And it's my understanding that the board may have actually repaid that loan during fiscal year 22, but it was something that it was noteworthy that I wanted to point out. If we look over to the right, page 68, this is the income statement, very high level. It'll show your ed fund, your tort immunity, and your working cash accounts. And what you can see is that your educational accounts, excess or deficiency of revenues over expenses, was about $393,000 for the year. So very, very close to being break even. But there are several one-time things that took place during the year that actually bolstered your educational fund that are not necessarily reoccurring in nature. And I took an excerpt from the management's discussion and analysis in the financial statements and just kind of pasted it off to the side here. And I think, one of the things that stuck out to me when performing the audit was there was a refund of prior year expenditures regarding, I guess, some run out that was closing out from the previous benefit cooperative that the district participated in. I believe that was somewhere around $800,000. And then, just coming in on the tail end of the presentation regarding the solar panel, but some of those dollars that you received, that $600,000 in those rebates, those dollars were also placed into the educational accounts during the year. So, looking at that just high level, there was well over, $1 million in one-time reoccurring and non-reoccurring types of dollars that really had an impact on your ed funds ending position. And that's not necessarily something that will continue into the future. So just to kind of give the board a little bit of insights from my perspective on that. If you can go to the next slide, please. So when we're performing an audit in accordance with governmental auditing standards, we're required to gain an understanding of the internal controls present over the preparation of the financial statements. So we'll do a series of walkthroughs, inquiries, questions, all of our audit results with management and the employees in the business office to understand how transactions are processed. And in the course of that, if we identify any risks in those processes, we'll use that information for tailoring our audit procedures so that when we render assurances on your financial statements, we do so without making mistakes. We want to make sure that we give you an unmodified audit opinion and there's no errors. During the course of performing those procedures, we're actually really not giving you assurances over your internal control structure. We don't say that it's effective, but if we do identify any gaps in those controls or errors in the financial statements that were undetected, we'll communicate those as risks to the governing body. And there's these categories called material weaknesses, which is the highest level of risk, and then there's the next runner-up is a significant deficiency. If we had any of those, we would report those to you. And I'm pleased to let the board know that we did not identify any material weaknesses during the course of the audit. Next slide, please. At the same time, if we identified any material non-compliance with laws or regulations during the course of our audit, we would report those to you as well. And we did not identify any matters in that light as well. Next slide, please. Some of the things that auditing standards require us to communicate to is if we had any difficulties in performing our audit, or if we had any disagreements with management regarding the application of accounting principles or estimates used in the financial statements. And I'm pleased to let everybody know that we did not have any instances of this during the audit. If anything, I think it was a challenge to have a new auditing firm come in and ask a lot of different questions or have different theories on how things might get presented in financial statements or questions, and then you throw that on top of in a remote environment for the most part. It's a lot of work for the business office in a condensed period of time, and I think everybody did a really great job. I mean, we had full cooperation from the business office personnel. Everybody did such a nice job of welcoming us in and answering our questions and turning around documents really timely. So I was really appreciative of that for a first year audit in this environment too. Next slide, please. So that kind of summarizes the audit results. We will be continuing to work on our single audits. I anticipate that we'll probably have a single audit wrapped up by mid-February, if everything aligns. I know the good majority of our testing has been performed, and now we're in the reporting and review and issuance stages. But I'd be more than happy to take any questions from the board at this time.
Any questions, Paul?
No, I do not, but thank you. It's all crystal clear to me.
It's all Greek to me.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Next item, I think, is the book to begin the budget process at that time of year, Mike.
Yeah, it's that time of the year. So there's a resolution tonight for the preparation of the budget. This kind of gives the board, gives me permission from the board to start and working on next year's budget. So any questions? Start.
Be resolved by the school board of school district number 121 in the county of Lake in the state of Illinois that the superintendent and chief school business official are hereby appointed to prepare a tentative budget for said school district for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Which tentative budget shall be filed with the secretary of this board.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Anderson and second by Beals. Mrs. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. Demonte.
Yes.
Mrs. Beals. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
The next two items are somewhat related in regards to any inactive student activity accounts that we may or may not have on given years, as well as the approval of board scholarships. And I'll let Mike give just an overview of this.
Yeah, so in years past, we've gone through and looked at inactive student accounts or anything else that's been inactive for more than 3 years. And at this time, there is no, we did a really good job in prior years. Let's just leave it at that. There is no
That's great.
inactive accounts at this point in time. The one account that we did end up closing, the community trust, that we ended up transferring the funds into the board scholarship, is where the board scholarship funds will be originating from and coming from for the future years. So, and that kind of leads into the next item. So, and that's the approval of the board scholarships. So, kind of looking at that information that you guys have, again, with the closing of the community trust credit union account, there's about $24,000 in change that was dedicated and appropriated by the board for future year scholarships. And right now it's within the actual wording itself, and obviously it can be changed, but we're recommending 3 $500 scholarships for this upcoming year for $1,500 in scholarships.
Questions? If not, I move to approve that the board distribute $1,500 in Board of Education scholarships as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Martinez.
Martinez.
Motion by Schultz and second by Martinez. Mrs. Beals.
Yes.
Mrs. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Demonte.
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is some information that Mike's excited to provide regarding direct certifications. The board members I know are interested in this, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so this has always kind of puzzled me a little bit ever since coming here. We have 3 wonderful feeder districts. You've got Milburn, Gurney 56, and Woodland 50 that come in. So I'm going to kind of give it like a little overview of kind of what's going on, how we're doing it, and what kind of needs to change a little bit. So right now, if you look at Warren Township High School's low-income populations, have been 17% for this last year. Again, I'll mention those 3 feeder skills coming in from Milburn, 24, Gurney 56, Woodland 56, and Gurney 56. Their free and reduced, or their low-income percentages are 13%, 38, and 46 respectively. And as you can see, Warren is not representative of those 3 feeder districts. A weighted average should place us right around 40% low income. So one of the ways that the state of Illinois determines low income is through direct certification. Direct certification means that a family or student that is receiving one of the following benefits. Those benefits can consist of SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, Medicaid, and CHIP. CHIP is a newer one. It's the Children's Health Insurance Program. that students can and families can directly certify. So kind of our goal is 6-part, and it's first to raise awareness that these programs exist to qualified families, and we encourage them to fill out applications. There's actually a really nice direct online application that goes through a multitude of different questions that kind of will help pinpoint exactly what a family or what a student might qualify for. And the nice thing is it's one application that branches out to these 4 benefit programs. So it's not a separate application for each one of these. So second is to help families understand that free breakfast and free lunch programs for students will be ending at the end of the school year and not be available for next year. Third is to work with families on site to help them fill out the application if they need assistance, and to hold a once-a-month help session at each campus, both in the morning and in the evening hours. Fourth is to accurately identify our low-income population and possibly qualify for Tier 1 funding through the state's evidence-based funding formula. Fifth is to increase a low-income count will help with Title I funds. Title I funding is generated based on the number of low-income students for the district for FY22. Each low-income student generated about $495 of low income, or excuse me, income for the district. Identifying additional low-income students will help increase the Title I allotment by approximately $495 for each additional student. And lastly, our 6th one is if the district were to exceed a low-income population of more than 30%, a waiver can be filed with the state to move from a targeted to a school-wide Title I program. A school-wide Title I program would allow Title I funds to be utilized to improve the educational experience of all students in the district and may not be limited to specific programs. And a targeted model, supplies and equipment and purchase with Title I funds are only eligible to be used with specific at-risk programs. Support programs such as attendance, intervention, and social emotional supports are not eligible for Title I in a targeted program, but become eligible for funding in a school-wide program. And we want to actively create a trusting relationship with our district's families to help make students' basic needs, that make sure they're being met, and that every student is able to achieve his or her full potential here at Warren. So that's kind of the overview of what we're going to try to push forward. Yes.
I think it's great. I love it. I think we should do this. And the question I have is, how can the same group of students be rated so differently when they just go, oh, from here to here? Is there a different rating system for middle school as there is for us? I mean, that makes, I don't, just the logic doesn't, I'm not saying it should be logical, don't get me wrong, it's the government, but it seems odd that they would just go from here to, it's the same people. I mean,
Correct.
theoretically.
It's the exact same students. It's the exact same children coming in. From my understanding, it's the not wanting to be identified as a free or reduced student. You're amongst friends, you're amongst populations.
But they have to reapply?
They have to reapply each and every year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay,
So.
got it.
So,
Yeah.
but,
So if they don't reapply, they fall off the list.
correct. And understanding, if you look at a weighted average, we should be right around 40%. So
Sure.
it's not like a super, here's 10% of the population that, are clearly identified. It's almost half our student population is low income. So.
Mike, can you clarify on the on the reapplying? So I know I know they have to apply annually, but that's for the waiver. But in regards to any of the 4 programs, they have to annually apply for those 4 programs on top of applying for the waiver through the district?
When you're talking about the waiver for the district, are you just talking about the registration fee waiver?
No, she's talking about those, listen, I'll tell you what she said. She said, do they have to reapply for SNAP and all those things every year too?
We would try to help them reapply.
No.
Yes.
Do they have to?
Yes.
So if they don't reply each year, they fall off that
They would
list.
fall off.
So they don't
Okay.
get it anymore.
Okay.
Correct.
That was the question. I know it was muffled, didn't come through real clear.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But we need to help them get on the list if they would so desire. Obviously, you can't make people do it.
Correct. And if the big thing is directly certifying the students, that way, because this is exactly what the state uses for multitude of different funding opportunities for each and every district. I'm not saying that they won't have an opportunity to fill out a free or reduced school lunch or school breakfast form, or a fee waiver on our registration fee. This is directly certified, and this would supersede our school form for our reduction of.
But they have to go into this portal and put the
Correct. It's just,
application.
it's going to take time. It's going to take, obviously, building trust and getting people out there.
Can we do this at registration?
I would hope that we would be able to do it at registration, but really it needs to be done prior to registration. So hence why we're bringing
So
it
they get
forward.
counted.
If we were to start in February and
Got it.
do,
Okay.
push it February, March, April, May.
But we could continue, as
we
an
could do it.
ongoing basis, we would do it.
Correct.
At
We could do
different
it
times.
on a 12-month
Right.
rotational cycle. But the numbers for this school year directly impact the numbers for next school year.
Right,
as
so
far
we
as
get them on
funding.
now, they count next year.
You got it.
I got it.
Can we identify the students that either currently or were when they were in the middle schools, identified as low income, and target those families directly and send them education materials directly?
I don't know if we can target them directly. I'm not sure about the sharing of information as far as that's concerned, but we could help target incoming 8th graders that are coming in, that, just so they're aware, hey, please continue to apply, please continue to.
We can't find out from our middle schools. We don't know if they would share with us.
Honestly, I don't know.
But we should ask.
We can definitely ask,
If
but
they sent the people who are freshmen now, if we knew who those people were, I mean,
it would help.
it might be an invasion of their privacy, and we can't find out. I understand that, but we should know for sure.
Sure, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's not just incoming 8th graders, but we've got
I
pretty
understand.
much all 4 years here that
Yeah.
we need to.
Absolutely.
And I think it would be a wonderful thing if we can identify 400 or 500 students. That would be absolutely wonderful.
We
Agreed
could help them.
completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to reiterate this, the timing right now is critically important because, we went through some challenges at the beginning of this year, transitioning to our free lunch for all of our students this year. But it's going to be equally, if not more challenging for students who, if they don't have the financial resources. Now, all of a sudden, we're going from, for our upperclassmen, for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they were used to having, no charge at lunch, if you will. So the timing is just for us to make sure everybody's aware of this in case they're eligible. Now's
We should start the paragraph with that.
Correct. And we have I've been working on some marketing things as well to try to be able to put things out there via social media and whatnot. But I just wanted to kind of share with the board and kind of get some feedback, some input, and kind of see where everybody's at. Absolutely.
Direct certification isn't the only way that they can qualify, is it?
For the state, for evidence-based funding, as far as being targeted low income, yes, that is what the state is using.
Okay.
Whether we do an income verification and do an application on behalf of, they're not using those numbers. No, they're using direct certs. That's what the evidence-based funding formula is.
Are our families able to get a registration fee waiver without completing this process?
Yes.
Somehow, if you were to tie the two, a savings of $500 to $600 could be the incentive for someone to complete the process, could help them with other programs, could help us with getting accurate numbers.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's the carrot.
Well, I agree with you 100%. By doing the direct certified and qualifying, you immediately qualify for not having the free and or reduced registration fee, and you would also qualify for the National School Lunch Program.
I'm
as well.
thinking it could just be a process change. Instead of this one pager separate form, we get rid of that and there's just this process to.
It's about I agree.
I don't know what's involved with this
It's a
process.
45-minute online.
Okay, well, therein lies thank you, government.
About 45 minutes from start to finish.
It's crazy.
It's both in English and in Spanish. It's, I've sat through a couple informational sessions and webinars on the application process, filling it out, best way to help assist. It's, you can go through it in a half hour, but that's really having all your.
I understand the challenge now. Thank you.
We should we should really work hard to help people do that.
I agree.
I mean, if we need somebody to help them, then
We should make resources.
we should make
available.
resources available to help people do it.
I mean, it helps the school and it helps
It
the
helps them,
families.
right.
Exactly. It's a win-win-win.
We have extra money, so.
Mike, if we identify a family and they haven't, do they have to apply for a school waiver? Or if we identify, do we automatically approve them?
If they're directly certified, they're automatically approved. We could do the upload list and they're on that list, so we can check them off
And then
instantly.
how do we communicate back to the family so they know that they don't have to do a waiver application and they're automatically approved?
Well, we're working right now on the registration process. That's going to be coming up over the next month or two for next year. So we're going to try to streamline it and really start trying to push the direct certification application.
Okay.
Yep.
And then are we working though within the 8th grade families coming in as freshmen? So we're capturing those families? Or we're just working through current 9 through 12?
We need to be doing both.
Right, that's why,
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking. Are we currently just doing 9 through 12? Or are we working from 8 to 9? Or if we're not doing that, are we going to start to?
Currently, we are not doing anything at all. So,
Okay.
so I would like to start with what we have control over right now, which would be our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And during the upcoming, I know we have I think it's a sports, I'm trying to remember, it's a sports night, I believe, coming up in February with incoming 8th graders to tell them about
Okay.
sports activities, and it's like a sports fair. Starting to work with some of those families to help notify, get the word out and help them go through the process.
Thank you.
Welcome. So,
Dr. Keeley, I would imagine that our social workers at all of our schools, not just here, but I would imagine that our social workers pretty connected to this situation. So, yeah, I imagine at all the schools probably, so. All right,
you.
thanks, Mike. It's very interesting. It's very interesting for the board. Thanks for good questions.
Next up is approval of the 22-23 school calendar.
Yeah, this calendar mirrors kind of our calendar for this year as well. And so that's just, we're at the time of the year when we go ahead and formally approve this for next year.
Questions on the calendar?
As I say every year, and no one ever agrees with me, I think we should have the whole week of Thanksgiving off.
Oh, I think they only get 2 or 3 days off.
I know, but we should give them the rest of the days off. Squeeze the schedule.
Right.
We can get this done.
I do have a question on the calendar. I did notice that in April, like April 7th or something like that, they don't have school, but then what happened to Good Friday? Or are we doing a neutralized non-religion calendar?
Well, we believe that is that date of that weekend, Natalia.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
So we believe that traditionally we have taken off that Friday.
Good
that
Friday.
People have associated with Good Friday.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe that is the non-attendance day in April.
April 7th.
Okay, so the April 7th is taking place of Good Friday. But my question is, are we doing that because we're trying to keep neutral in religious holiday?
No, he's saying that is Good Friday.
Yeah, we don't refer to it that way. on
April
our-
7th is Good
Right,
Friday.
it's a non-attendance day.
Good Friday, got it. Okay, all right.
Roger that.
Any other questions?
Simple one. It's the first week in January. There's probably an easy answer to this. I noticed that a lot of other schools don't take that week, but we did. Was that just because of semester change or was?
Well, there's a couple reasons for some things we try to get to there. One is, one thing we always look at is in trying to get to our 176 days of trying to balance as much as we can, where that's always not as easy as it can. But we've also tried to, this year, Tony, we also went later than some other people went in December. Some people were out the whole week.
I don't know, a lot of people were.
Before,
That's why I was
so,
curious.
Yeah, we tried to push it up as much as possible. One of our internal rules is we'll go up through December the 22nd. And so this year we went up through a Wednesday. Next year we'll go up through a Thursday. What that allows us to do is buy on the back end to still get 3 weekends, but it's pushed a little later. So we do look at all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I know you.
Every
yeah,
and we
I know
did
you
look, each year we look at coming back sooner or not and all that kind of stuff. So
Else? If not, I move to approve the 2022-2023 public school calendar as presented.
Second.
Third.
Roll call.
So Mr. Schultz
Beals.
made the motion. Beals made the Beals second. Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Blair,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Beals,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
the next item, I believe, is the amended current board schedule for 21-22. We just made the adjustments down at the bottom. If you'll see that happened in October and November, as well as what we've done is we've taken from our discussion last time in June, we've taken the 14th and the 28th out and consolidated them into one meeting on June the 21st. So this is a revised 21-22 board calendar.
The schedule of board meetings, regular board meeting dates is available on our webpage. Meetings generally start at 6:30 PM with an executive session in the board conference room at the district office, followed by an open session at 7:30 in the Alman Campus Library. The Warren Township High School District Office and Alman Campus are both located at 34090 Alman Road in Gurnee. Meeting notices are posted 48 hours prior to the meeting as required. Any other questions on this? If not, I move to approve the amended 2021-2022 Board of Education meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Martinez. Mrs. Blair,
Yes.
Mrs. Beals,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
And we have the 22-23 look ahead for the board meeting.
Else? Questions? If not, I move to approve the 2022-23 Board of Education meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Anderson. Mrs. Beals,
Yes.
Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Upgrades of some firewalls, I think, are our next item, Gio.
So we're coming up at the end of our current licensing for our existing firewalls. We began looking into the renewal process with Palo Alto several months ago. We felt that their quote was exorbitant, to say the least. Firewalls really don't fall under E-rate is very cleanly. So we got quotes from Palo Alto. We tried to get them to come down because that's trying to reutilize some existing our existing hardware. In the meantime, since we've been doing a lot of work with Cisco and Meraki, we sought a quote from Cisco's equivalent service, and they came in significantly less expensive. However, with everything right now in the world, especially in IT, lead times are a significant issue. Currently, there's a 4-month lead time on the Cisco Firepowers, which is pretty consistent with what we're seeing across the board in lead time for similar types of devices. So where this would normally have been a next year project, we needed to make it a this year project so we can get in the queue and have those firewalls here on site before our current licensing runs out at the end of June. So our firewalls control our web filter. They are also control a lot of the flow of our network internally, and also connect our campuses. Our campuses actually connect through VPN tunnel through our firewall. So it's a very important piece of our network infrastructure. Any questions?
Can't live without a firewall.
No, you cannot. Not if you want to not have viruses everywhere.
Oh. Virus bombs.
Yeah, move to approve the technology upgrades of 2 Cisco Firepower firewall software, licensing and support in the amount of $99,454.72.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Martinez. Mrs. Beals? Yes. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
That's right, E-rate.
So the next piece is the first phase of our E-rate project for this year. So last year, we reinstalled a brand new wireless system throughout the district with Meraki, Cisco Meraki. This year, we are looking to refresh the switches throughout the entire district, utilizing E-rate funds to move everything over to a Meraki infrastructure. Increases our ability to monitor traffic on the network, be able to monitor and manage our network remotely and on site. It's helped us to track devices and keep just have a higher level of visibility throughout the network. In addition to that, we also have buildings with aging fiber runs. So we're actually, this is the first phase of that project. Right now we're engaging with another E-rate process, another Form 470 process to get more, to get a quote for pulling some new fiber runs. So a lot of technology now is running on 10 gig connections, whereas a lot of our fiber runs, especially here at the Almond campus, can only handle about 1 gig. So it's not able to handle the throughput that we needed to handle with the traffic that we have currently. So to this phase for the switches, again, is about $235,000, takes care of our switches, our cores throughout the entire district, would give us complete refresh. With the E-rate discount of 40%, we save the total cost of the district comes down to actually about $140,000. Again, would bring us unified under the Cisco Meraki umbrella and would help dramatically improve our network performance. So same thing with the firewalls though, again, where this is something that we would want to do potentially on next fiscal year. We need to get this going right as soon as possible because we don't know when we're able to, we don't know what the lead time looks like. And now this one is a little different since this is E-rate. Or today I'm asking for approval from the Board of Education to make the purchase once E-rate approve, or the USAC, who's the organization that oversees E-rate. We're asking for approval. So once USAC approves our 470 response, then we can go ahead and make the purchase.
Questions? Now I move to approve the E-rate Category 2 expenditures for E-rate year 25 as presented, with no purchasing to take place until final approval is granted by the Universal Service Administration Company.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Anderson. Mrs. Martinez?
Yes.
Mrs. Beals?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Next up is the first reading of the board policies.
So I'm going to read through the policies that we review at our January 11th policy meeting. These will be up again before the board for a second reading and approval at our first February meeting, which I believe is February the 8th. So I'm going to get ready to read my list, everybody. Here we go. Policy 220 for the powers and duties of the school board, 2105 ethics and gift ban, 2110 qualifications of board officers, 2120 board member development, 2150 committees, 2220 school board member procedures, 2220E exhibit 1 board treatment of closed meeting records, evidence, exhibit 3 closed meeting minutes, exhibit 5 semi-annual review of minutes, exhibit 6 log of closed minutes, exhibit 8 school board records, and 250 exhibit 2 available district public records on the website. 2260 the uniform grievance procedure at D121. 340 is superintendent at D121. 350 is administrative personnel other than the superintendent. 360 are the administrative responsibilities of the principal. 460 are purchases and contracts. 480 are accounts and audits. 4110 transportation. 4120 food service. 4150 facility management. 4160 environmental quality of our buildings. 4165 awareness and prevention of child sexual abuse. 4170 is safety. 4175 is convicted child sex offender notifications. 510 is equal employment at D121. 520 is workplace harassment prohibited at D121. 530 is hiring process and criteria. 550, drug and alcohol-free workplace. 590, abused and neglected child reporting. 5100, staff development program. 5120 are employee ethics. 5125 rather, are personal technology. 5125 Exhibit 2 is the guidelines for electronic communications. 5150 are personnel records at D121. 5185 are family and medical leave at D121. 5200 are terms and conditions of employment. 5210 are resignations at D121. 5260 student teachers. 5330 sick days at D121. 615 school accountability. 620 the school year calendar. 650 school wellness. 660 curriculum content. 6120 the educational student with disabilities. 6130 program for the gifted. 6135 the accelerated placement program. 6180 is the extended instructional programs at D121. 6220 are bring your own technology. 6300 are graduation requirements at D121. 6300, the second exhibit are state law graduation requirements. The third exhibit are the form for exemption from the FAFSA completion at D121. 6310 is high school credit for non-district experiences at D121. 6320 are high school credit for proficiency. 6340 is student testing. 710 is equal educational opportunities. 720 harassment of students prohibited at D121. 730 are student assignment at D121. 750 school admissions. 760 residents at D121. 770 are attendance. 780 release time for religious instruction. 7150 agency and police interviews. 7160 student appearance. 7165 school uniforms. 7180 prevention of and response to bullying at D121. 7190 are student behavior. Exhibit 1 is aggressive behavior checklist. Exhibit 2 is the student handbook checklist. Exhibit 3 is a memorandum of understanding. And Exhibit 4 is the acknowledgement of receiving our student behavior policy and code of conduct at D121. 7200 are suspension procedures at D121. The first exhibit is short-term out-of-school suspension. The second exhibit is long-term out-of-school suspensions. Those are both at D121. 7210 are expulsion procedures at D121. The first exhibit with that are the notice of expulsion hearing at D121. 7240 is conduct code for extracurriculars at D121. 7250 are student support services. 7260 are exemption from PE at D121. The second exhibit of 280 is reporting and exclusion requirements for common communicable diseases. 7290 are suicide and depression awareness. 7315 are restrictions on publications for high schools. 7340 are student records. 7345 are use of educational technologies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. That's it for new business.
Whew, old business. We're bringing back a discussion, right, on the ban.
Go ahead, Dr. Engel, discussion on the bans.
This is discussion and approval for purchasing up to 3 vans for the student transportation. I know at the last board meeting, we had some board questions. They want a little bit more in-depth dive into kind of the costs and financials and looking at some of the depreciation schedules for the vans over the 5-year, looking at ISB reimbursements and costs associated with it. So I've made a nice little spreadsheet, totaled out the contracted prices there, which we've spent between, this is a cost average between FY20 through FY22 for the 17 routes, the 3 vehicle choices. So you're looking at the Ford Connect, Ford Transit, Toyota Sienna, the cost, passengers, miles per gallon combined, and then looking at the depreciation costs that are in there, ISB reimbursement, direct costs annually, and then total monthly depreciation, and then district costs monthly, and then also the repair and maintenance of the vehicles, same breakdown, fuel costs at 18,000 miles annually, and then the cost of drivers and benefits and the operating cost of that vehicle and how it would break down. After doing all that, it came out to about an average about $1,700 or $1,800 per route per month that the district would actually be saving that amount each and every month. And part of the ask was to try to start this program, looking for not to exceed 3 vehicles or a specific dollar amount to kind of, if you will, test it to make sure that we could start part of the pipeline, if you will, for drivers coming in with just normal driver's licenses and then working them through CDL training and helping out with our shortages right now with our normal bus transportation.
Questions?
Seems logical as long as you got drivers.
Right, part of it is just to make, yeah, I was just gonna say the timing of it all is very important, just in regards to making sure there's drivers and then not moving too fast where we don't have vans sitting there and no drivers, all that kind of stuff, so.
How many routes are there?
There's 17 routes.
You save $1,700 a month per route?
Route, correct, yeah.
Logical.
Mm-hmm.
And then long-term, and this is kind of another thing that if this ends up being successful and looking at renewals for next year, because keep in mind this year, we did a 5-year lease for our 77 large passenger buses for regular ed students. Next year, it's the 5th and final year for our leases for the special ed buses. And this typically runs anywhere between 1/3 to 40% of the operational cost of a big bus. So this would be cost savings there. And I'm not saying all the buses we would be able to supplant with vans or things of that nature, but this would be a huge, not only energy savings, fuel reduction, but also just monthly leasing costs as well.
Great idea. Even the part that thrills me is the pipeline piece, because bus drivers, shortages of bus drivers have been well documented for many years, and it's a creative solution to try to attack that. So just kudos for trying something different. Question: do any of these routes require retrofitting for a wheelchair?
Right now, no. These would just be non-wheelchair routes right now. Definitely accommodation for if somebody needs a one-on-one aid and things of that nature, but non-wheelchair at this point. Wheelchair, I would still feel more comfortable because we can do 2 or 3 of them on a special education bus. So
makes sense.
Now, I move to approve the purchase of up to 3 vans not to exceed $110,000.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Beals. Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Blair. Yes. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Beals. Yes. Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
We return to school update.
Yeah, Brandon, could you do me a favor and try to see what that next slide is? There might be just a few ideas on there. Dr. Keeley and Mr. Giocaris, will you guys just step forward just to make sure we're talking? One thing that we were going to throw in, but I'm glad we brought it up right now, just in terms of return to school, was we did have to put a communication out to families who do use our buses, just to let them know that, you know, like everybody, we have staff shortages here that may cause us to do unanticipated things if we can't be running all of our routes on given days or for spans of days. So it's not unusual that I know a lot of districts have been putting those things out, just so parents are aware that, you know, it's a reality. You know, and Gene Turfy does a great job with our transportation department, trying to juggle a lot. But there does, you know, we did want to make sure we let the board know that we did communicate to families. The other things, Pat, just you want to talk just a little bit about just the new, at least 5 days instead of 10, and so
Previously, it was 10 days for quarantine and 14 days for athletics, being out of sports. Now it's 10, stay out of sports, 5 days for the quarantine, unless the symptoms are still present. Obviously, it gets extended at that point.
Yeah, the other thing that we updated the board just on where we're at right now with staff, just in regards to.
With staff now, boosters will be, if they don't have a booster, they'll be considered into our weekly testing group, our unvaccinated group. We're not fully vaccinated. So staff that does not get their booster dose by January 31st, then they will have to test twice weekly and give us results on Mondays and Thursdays. We have a very high, prior to this, I think it was what, 95%, if I'm trying to remember correctly, of our staff was vaccinated. I don't know what that booster final number is because we're still collecting and figuring out what that data is. I would assume it's going to be very similar.
How are we going to manage getting all the test results?
Staff are on their own to get their tests. We don't provide any tests,
They can just do an at-home test, and who's going to?
not an at-home test.
Yeah, so there's testing shortages out there. Wanting the results to come back or just?
Yes.
So what do you do in a case where if they're testing twice a week, but it takes 2 to 3 days to get the test results back?
That could be an issue when that starts. Right now, we have them once a week and we don't have that issue. So
Is somebody at the school collecting the test results or is it?
the nurses are collecting the results. We have a spreadsheet. When someone doesn't comply, then I intervene with that staff member for not being in compliance.
The nice thing is, like Pat mentioned early on, is the vast majority of our staff are fully vaccinated. We anticipate that they'll get their booster for their own safety and well-being. That's the primary, as well as just to make sure.
Approximately, I think it's like 27 staff members testing weekly right now. That number could grow. Some staff might not get, I don't have that number until the 31st, obviously.
So can I say that I don't honestly believe that these at-home tests are fully accurate, and I'm telling you from my own personal experience in the past 10 days. And how are we going to really know that if that they test negative, but they have symptoms? Are we going to say to go get a PCR test? Because that's
we don't accept at-home tests.
Pardon?
We don't accept at-home tests.
Oh, we don't accept. Okay, great.
Only if they're positive. If someone says, hey, I'm positive, no one's going to lie about that. We do. accept
Right. No. Okay.
Seems logical.
I thought so. But
Yeah.
I'm positive, but I'm lying about it. I'm telling you right now. I just want to go home.
Any
And
other
Gio, we
questions?
want to update the board on our discussion about final exams. It's ongoing discussion.
So one of the things that we've been discussing a lot since the end of first semester is just our approach to final exams for second semester. So at the beginning of the year, we had a discussion with our lead teachers, our curriculum leadership team about what we want to do with finals, and with the data that we had at that point where we thought the school year was going, we thought that was a good decision. But as we entered into December, we had the spike. We were kind of in a position of, did we make the right decision for our kids and for our curriculum instruction? So one of the things that we've been talking about is just thinking about the impact of right now as you go out through the rest of the course of the year. So we have obviously we're in the middle of a surge right now. We have a lot of kids that are out, and they're out for several days. The surge is not letting up any, our numbers are not going down at all. And as we continue to move towards the second semester, our teachers are not only trying to teach the content and the skills that they're working on currently, but they're also trying to catch kids up. And yes, kids can remote into classes if they're in the COVID protocols, but it's not the same as actually being there and interacting with your teacher every day. So that puts a lot of stress on the teachers, and it puts even more stress on the kids as we start to think about what is the most important thing for our kids here as we move through these last 18 weeks of this school year. It's time in the classroom with our teachers, focusing on skills. It's not spending potentially up to 5 days on a final exam or cumulative assessment. So right now, as we're collecting some information from our PLT leaders and their experiences, but one of the things, common themes that we've been hearing from them is, while the process went okay, we had a lot of kids that were absent. We had a lot of teachers that felt that they weren't able to adequately prepare kids for a common assessment for a final exam because the kids were in all different places. And now with the surge, we feel that that's kind of compounding things. So we want to make sure that we're making a thoughtful decision. And so right now we're kind of leaning towards the not doing final exams for second semester. I just wanted to kind of share what we were thinking with the board and see if there's any comments.
I think not having finals for second semester would be a great thing. I do have a question about the subs. As we rise in numbers right now, do we have enough subs to fill possibly the spots where our teachers are not coming in because they have to quarantine due to a family member or their own illness.
We have had staff that have been quarantined. It hasn't been overwhelming.
Okay.
But is the sub pool very strong? No, it's not. We have a lot of teachers that are subbing during their plan periods for their contractual rate.
Okay.
We haven't had strong sub numbers though this is a couple years. This isn't just to the pandemic. It's even prior to the pandemic. We've struggled to hire subs.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions on return to school? Thank you.
Thank you for the updates.
Next item is a referendum. So we see what's out there. And then I'm just going to start with a few things on my end, just to remind or at least update the board on kind of some thoughts or some things to keep in mind. I want to share a letter with the board, and I obviously want to have the board weigh in and help us process through trying to get as much information out to the community as possible on our last 6 months. So first off, I think it's actually early in April is the actual deadline for the filing at the Lake County Clerk's office. So we have plenty of time for that, but we're ready to do that now because we were fairly ready to actually file the paperwork because of our last referendum question. So we're going to have that reviewed one more time just to make sure that nothing's changed. And then we're going to file that with the county and post the actual question language itself at both of our campuses. We're early on that, but again, it's something we're going to get done soon because we can. We did the thanks to Tony and John for jumping in on our January 12th, what turned into our remote presentations. So we didn't, it was nice to see we had about 40 people join our remote presentation in English. No parents joined in Spanish, but it was nice for us to run through it because we were able to record that presentation that Yesenia and Matt gave, and they were great. But it's always good to have access to that. And we'll see going forward where we seem to be getting audiences and where we're not. And obviously what we want to do is make sure that we're providing those presentations to audiences as much as possible or sharing that information to where we think it's most viewed. And so February 9th, we have one at our Almond campus tentatively. February 23rd, we're at the library. We're excited about that. So if anybody knows that you're available on either the 9th or the 23rd, anybody available want to jump in on the 9th? Or you guys?
Yeah.
Great, that's perfect. So, and then we'll have we'll have a board meeting. Let's see, is it the 9th? When's our board meeting? The 8th. So we'll just confirm. That'd be great. We'll have enough time for the 23rd. But Kathy and Betsy, if we can have you on the 9th at our campus here, that'd be great. Something changes, we'll be able to adjust on that as well. Also, remember for any of these events or just in general, one thing that I wanted to make sure that we, I let the board know is we can have more than 2 board members there, but on our end, if we're going to do that, we just have to make sure that we post it. Right. So if ever there was a presentation where we wanted to make sure that all board members could attend it, we would just have to post it as, a board meeting where more than it's by open meeting act, we're going to let people know that you're all going to be there and then we could still give a presentation. Just something to keep in mind, because generally when we've been doing these, we haven't posted them as board meetings. So we haven't had to we've known that only 2 of you are going to show up. So we're not worried about open meeting act stuff. We're just trying to make sure that if you guys ever do want to have all of you there or a lot of you there, all we have to do is post it, which we certainly can do if we know that. And then the only other thing that I wanted to make sure was Warren Township Supervisor Sue Simpson. She was giving some thoughts on a referendum, and she asked if she actually wanted to come tonight. She just couldn't at the last minute. Asked if I would read this to you. So, dear board, the volunteers leading the charge for the school referendum need you to form committees to do the following jobs. Weekly coffees at local Starbucks, paying for a cup of coffee, answering questions about the referendum. Could be round robin, so no more than one person stuck doing it every Saturday. This must be done. Now, this must start mid-February, run all the way through the election. The board needs to organize friend-to-friend cards. These are postcards that are an endorsement of the referendum. You can send to your friends within the district. Ask others to do the same. They will be postage paid, and all the individual has to do is add their name on the endorsement line and address them to their acquaintances within the district. And then she has another little statement here, Sue does. The committee's busy getting mailings together on running numbers. Right now, we need money. It's imperative I have the name of individuals that will design the pieces. I will help in designing the message, and I'm willing to lend my name to an endorsement piece if and only if the board does the same. My estimate that this time is approximately 200,000 pieces of mail to do this. First mailers have to be done at the mailing house late March for early voting. Time is ticking down, not much of it. There is printing and mailing house fees to pay for. The committee is already booking time at events to explain the need. It is imperative that elected school board members put their faces out there as well. Make no mistake, this is a political fight for the life of our school. If you choose not to take up the necessary steps, 5 people can't go it alone, nor should they. Again, that came from Sue, and I just promised her I would read it to the board because they knew we had a board meeting tonight.
Thank you, Sue. I think we all realize that, so I think it's time to get out, so.
Okay, so
Go time.
on that thought, time to get out. I mean, Sue mentioned weekly meetings starting in February. What are your board members' thoughts on that?
We could create a rotation, you know.
Absolutely, because we could just have 2 people at a time, starting mid-February. Thoughts on where we could have them? The follow-up question is going to be, who's going to help contact these little, businesses to make sure that we can have these meetings there? So I'm looking for volunteers to help out with this.
I'll help.
It doesn't have to be a Starbucks. There's lots of places in town.
Yeah,
So
no,
how long? Okay.
I know a couple people with businesses. I'm happy to help.
How long do we think each of these meetings should be?
Well, are you trying to make it like,
Just like 2 board members and anybody else who wants to show up, coffee, drinks, whatever.
an hour? Is that enough? An hour and a half?
Thinking an hour should be fine. Okay.
What are you guys thinking back, an hour?
Yeah, I'm thinking an hour.
Hour.
Days of the week and what times?
Well,
It can vary.
Saturday during the day or during the week, it has to be at night,
yeah,
right?
I think that, well, the thing is that some of us.
Informational only.
Some of us are at home, right? At home, so we could divide depending on what our own schedules are. Like I know for myself, an evening or weekend is best because I'm at a work, I'm in an office building during the day. John, you're retired. You could probably pick up day shifts.
I don't do anything in the morning. Let's just be clear about that right now.
Okay, TS for you.
I can go to Walmart and be a greeter. Would that help?
You can hand out pamphlets. Here's a shopping cart. Here's a pamphlet.
I can do during the day. It's fine. I'm happy to do if there's times during the day that are good. Then what do you think about getting on the radio, talk radio or something like that when we get closer? We can go over to Gurney Mills and get on 3 radio stations at once.
That'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll take care of that. I'll call them.
Okay. So like either we could do, so you're like.
Informational only.
Right, but are we saying that we would do like restaurant-based locations?
For these weekly meetings?
Yeah.
I think a variety of locations would be great at different areas in town.
Yeah.
Not everybody spends their spare time drinking coffee,
Oh, I know. Okay.
So here's what I'm going to ask, whoever can help out, start calling. I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to pick out what date and time. But by next, let's say today's Tuesday, but let's say next Tuesday, if you can just contact me, don't contact the rest of the board, just contact me and say what dates and times you have set up.
Yeah.
And from that, we'll start filling in the gaps. I think the hardest thing, and it's not that hard, but the most time consuming thing might be setting up the times and the locations. Because after that, we'll get the volunteers, even if just a couple of us have to go to every single one of them. But let's get the commitments to a location and a date and a time.
Well, just so we're not calling and making like the multiple times on the same day. Natalia, you and I, maybe we could call around. Actually, you too, you know local businesses too. Yeah. So maybe the three of us, well, I guess the three of us really can't talk like that, but.
We could do it like 2 and 2, but
Right.
Kathy's in that community women's group where I'm sure
Yeah.
Kathy.
Oh, okay, it's good.
Yeah. So we could brainstorm.
Yeah.
2 at a time. We could
Right.
just get on the phone and brainstorm ideas.
And I've heard about some of those monthly meetings you have, Kathy. I'll be glad to go to one of them.
Yep.
Yes, please.
So between the three of us.
Hang on,
Hold
Natalia.
on, time out.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Senior Center.
Yeah.
Things like that, public places where there's traffic. But my question would be more so, not just setting up the,
Advertise it on the,
Yeah, so and again, these are informational gatherings. We can help. There won't be more than 2 board members at a meeting. I'm assuming that the nature of the conversation at that point in time, if the district advertised it on our website and we just have these meetings with board members wherever and whenever they are, as long as the context of the discussion that's handed out has to do with information similar to what's in our flyers, similar to just the general information that we've been handing out anyway, we're all fine. And we certainly can help advertise that running list of those events.
and I would assume that we could get some help from you guys, that once we get a list, you could help
Informational
us
meeting.
promote it too. And we'll each promote it ourselves just to get the word out there. Yep.
No. No, of course
take
not.
Not take it.
We know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
and you know what?
Walk over there every morning for an hour and a half, so I'll stop in and chat with them. They wave at me. I don't think they really want to talk to me, but they do wave, so.
Posters of the places you've identified.
Yeah, you can't decide today and do it tomorrow, right? It takes a few weeks to get ready. Understood.
That's what I was thinking. Once we get the list developed, then we've got something to send out to the newspapers, to the press. I mean,
But
that's
the
why I want to get that list put together. Yeah. Do I
radios-
honestly think it's going to be completely done by next Tuesday? That would be great, but at least we get a good start on it. You got to start putting deadlines down or it's not going to happen.
The radio station does a Gurney's Got It segment every Thursday, and it's usually a business focus, but I mean.
Which one? There's 3 of them over there.
The
talk radio?
XLC.
What?
Yeah.
102.3.
Yeah.
God, well, I'll just talk them to get on all of them. Doesn't matter.
They did OD Paul for being the historian. So I don't know why they wouldn't build in a school.
They do Gurney Days. They do.
Mm-hmm.
What other ideas we got out there?
We're always asking you, come on, Beth. Just consider yourself part of the crew. Because you are the crew.
Yeah, got to use our resources.
You can't hurt my feelings.
I also want to remind the board that we'll see how it goes at our next formal presentation, which we would love to do in other locations too, meaning, our Spanish speakers, right? We would love to get a location together where Matt and Yesenia can come on and give that presentation, right? In a site where we may be more likely to gather a larger group of Spanish speakers who they might be more comfortable us going there anyway, whether it be a church or some other location like that. So that's why we've put a tentative list of presentations together, but also we're not, we don't necessarily have to continue to do things that aren't necessarily drawing people if we know there's other things that may have more life. Also, at our Almond campus presentation, we don't know what turnout we'll get there, but that is the first one where we'll at least be able to start to publicize that we will have information on the voter registration process, hopefully at that meeting, right, Dr. Keeley? So, I mean, and that's something we've tried to just tie in regardless where it is, because Pat can register voters and he can give information out on that now just for, in general, but it also always helps to have that in case somebody wants to learn, but they also need to register to vote, or they know somebody else that, needs to register to vote. So
Has anyone done Rotary or any Lions groups?
we are tentatively slated going to Rotary on March the 3rd.
March.
3rd is Thursday, March 3rd. Yeah.
Natalia, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I did, and I can't remember now. So when I remember, I'll text you guys.
Okay.
To Kathy's question though, like the Exchange Club, Rotary Club, those are closed to a degree, right? Those aren't always making our list because those are not necessarily open meetings. Like they're not closed, if you will, but they generally don't have room they wouldn't expect 40 random people to show up at one of their normal meetings based on what they do. So we don't necessarily, although we go out to those, we're happy to, and we'll do that all the time. They don't fall onto our list because they're kind of just private events or separate events. So.
Director's writing notes. Anything else? Okay, appreciate all the good ideas. We just gotta keep pushing and make sure the ideas actually come into actions now. So I'm gonna be repetitive. Try and get me every dates and locations confirmed by next Tuesday, and I'm gonna assume there'll be gaps in there, but there's other people that can help fill in the gaps. The best point, we need to advertise it, but we gotta make sure we have something to advertise before we start advertising it. So I don't want to
Don't start next week or anything.
Yeah,
Give yourself
we're talking mid
2 or 3 week running
mid-
head start to
mid-February
get it organized.
Yeah, because I don't want it to be a running list and tentatively this or tentatively that. I want firm dates. I want this is the set times, dates, and locations where we're going to be at. Else? Thank you, everyone. I know I keep looking this way, but thank you, everybody. You two volunteered out of the gate, so. And I'll be looking for places as well. So, I mean, I'd rather find out that we've got too many places on the same
Yeah, for
week
sure.
than not enough. So that would be a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Anything else on the referendum?
Just that when you guys start to set up your schedule, we can certainly make sure that, between one of us too, once we have your schedules down, we'll make sure we divide up and can help as much as we can as well, just in case there's a follow-up question that, we may have.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too. Plus once we get the dates and locations set up, we'd lean on you because we'd like some information to hand out. It'd be nice if we had a little something put on the table. So somebody's wondering, who are those people sitting at Starbucks? Just to let them know, oh, go into that direction. I know at your events, you had really nice things on the tables. It was well set up. I mean, just anything. So to help direct the people towards us.
The district flyers, if any of us know different businesses, we could always drop off some of the district flyers, like for example, whether it's a cleaning service company, one of the restaurants, one of the mom and pop, like say, for example, like The Point, right? That's a bunch of people go there for breakfast and brunch. The Shanty, the local cleaners, I'm thinking, any kind of business that we know of that we have some kind of rapport. I think it'd be a good idea if we go and say, hey, can we leave this stack of flyers here for you? So, and then that way it's visible to all sorts of incoming clientele, whether it's student base, parent base, or just community member, whether, you know, like they don't have any children anymore in the district, but you're capturing by leaving pamphlets in different local businesses, like a brief summary of what they need to know for the referendum. And I'm happy to, you know, go to drop these off at the different businesses if you guys think, you know, it's something that we want to do.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, everything and anything.
More information, the better. More people.
So for these pamphlets, how easy is it to get them from the district end?
Just let us know how many you need flyers?
Yeah.
Just let us know how many you need and we'll start folding tomorrow.
Okay. You don't have a folding machine?
Yeah, we got about 20 of them actually.
It's called an angle. It's a brand new machine, an angle.
Let's make sure we have angles.
It's called Matthew, Mark, and Luke Engel.
Oh, angle. Got it.
Okay. Anything else tonight for the referendum?
Anything else, Beth? We're on it. And I'll go to the meetings if you want, if we're all going to the township, I'd be happy to go. You just tell me when it is. I just love to go. Because I are an old person. Here's.
We wouldn't be half as.
Oh, no question. Yes, absolutely.
In the last 3 months, and I think we proved that the last time, right?
Right.
So
No, right.
waiting until 3 months before this vote is,
Agreed.
but also I appreciate everyone stepping.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, like I attended the forum. I have a pretty large network myself. I mean, don't mistake my silence for not a support. So I'm in my head thinking of all the places and I'll give Paul that list. But yeah, please don't here, let me talk into this. Don't mistake my silence for not having ideas. So my brain is processing. I have ideas for locations. I'll get that list to Paul. No, I mean, nothing unlike what everyone is saying here by far. So, yeah. And we do appreciate all the work that you guys have done for sure. I mean, we do talk about that. So no, it doesn't go unnoticed. Yeah, no, it really doesn't. So,
You might be
thank
surprised
you.
at how many board meetings your guys' names come
Yeah.
up directly or
Yeah.
In vain.
in general, I was gonna say.
I mean, just don't call me. Just don't call me late for dinner. That's all.
I really like the idea that you guys had with the magnets for the cars. I got mine today. I think it is the best way to like ride around town and you have your little sticker in the back of your car.
I donated yesterday, so.
Else? Donate through my wife's work, so that's how come you didn't see my name. I like to use her credit card. Anything else? Okay, if not, it's our second round of reception of visitors, so we have this at the end of the meeting as well, in case any topics came up that you'd like to address the board, something we talked about tonight. If you'd like to address the board, by all means, we'd like to hear what you have to say. All you have to do is walk up to the podium and state your name, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. Okay, I'm not going to wait too much longer because I think everybody who's here has said what they wanted to say. So And I greatly appreciate everybody's comments, as always. Anything else by any board members? Anybody else got a topic?
Nope.
If not, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Anderson. Mrs. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Demonte,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Beals,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you.